Welcome to this episode of Locked In. This is gonna be part 2 of my turning my gravel bike into a 90s mountain bike. If you haven't seen part 1, please make sure to watch that video in the description below. In this video, I'm gonna be talking about my impressions of what you're gonna potentially have to start changing, going from a drop bar into a flat bar, and what reach changes and things to keep in mind when doing this conversion yourself, because unlike going from a flat bar to a drop bar, it's just everything's kind of in reverse. So if you wanna hear more about that and what gearing I'm gonna be changing out on this bike to make it the ultimate 90s mountain bike / bikepacking rig, please stay tuned. So in this first part, we're gonna be discussing just my initial impressions. All I've done to this bike since the last part that you've seen is literally just kind of realign the bars into an angle that I like and set the brake levers to something that I like, and then giving you my initial impressions on how it feels on the bike and giving you some just rough things to think about when doing this kind of conversion, because instead of just swapping bars out, there's potential other things you need to be changing. Typically that's going to be in your stem, either longer or shorter, and I'll explain in this video about which one you may need to do and why. So the stock handlebar on the Pateron Redwood came in at 46 centimeters center to center, and the external width of the end to end of this flat bar is 73 centimeters. Now this is a stock bar setup that they do use on the Pateron Next, and if you want to see this bike optioned like this from Pateron, please make sure to comment in the comments below. So obviously when you're going wider, that's going to extend your reach outward, just like it would on a drop bar, going from, let's say, a 46 to a 50 or 52 like they have nowadays. Now with a flat bar setup, obviously you're not gripping onto the end of the bar like this and reaching all the way out to the end. You're basically going to be in the middle of the grip. So if I measure from the center of the grip to the center of the grip on here, you're looking about 60 centimeters. So still quite a bit wider than you're going to be running on a drop bar. And no matter what kind of bars you're changing to, drop or flat bar, the wider you go, it's going to effectively lengthen your reach. So even though you might be going out to the side, your reach numbers are going to basically increase. So if you're taking a flat bar to a drop bar setup, you're going to be reaching forward, but might be going more inboard. And where in my scenario, I'm actually shorting the reach via the bar, but then I'm going to move my hands outward. So usually in that scenario, depending on the width of the bar, you're most likely going to be going up a stem size, typically. Now these bars being 73 centimeters are not the most wide bars or what's typically on trend for most mountain bikes nowadays. Most stock bikes are going to come with anything between a 76 centimeter to an 800 centimeter. You can obviously always cut those bars down. So at 730, I'd say this is going to be on the shorter end for most modern mountain bikes. Now if I put an 800 mil width bar on this bike, I can pretty much guarantee that the 80 is going to be what I'm going to be wanting to stick on here and keep on here. But because this is kind of that mid-length, I'm thinking I'm either going to keep this stem length or go to a 90 millimeter for my exact setup. So let's hop on the bike and see what I think. So typically for body position wise, if you guys want to see it, my brake levers actually are basically the exact same width as my drop bar scenario. So my hands were typically about here. So obviously my position on the bike and how my body is positioned is going to be very different than on a flat bar setup. So as you can see, I am more upright than I was on a drop bar position, but again, my hands are a lot wider. Now the reason why this matters is, yes, this feels more upright than I'm used to, but there's a few things I always tell people to look for when on a flat bar bike. One is your shoulder position. You don't want your shoulders too far forward, like you're reaching like this, or obviously too far back where your back is either arching the opposite way, or you're just kind of tucked back and you feel like you're going to basically hit your knees all the time. The other thing to consider is obviously turning the front end of a flat bar bike, especially at this wider bar, is being able to actually turn the bike, which is something that a lot of people don't think about. They just get kind of fitted like this, but you want to be able to manipulate the bike and have full control going lock to lock in both directions. Now, as you can see here, yes, I am extended, but my body's not actually moving forward to compensate to turn the bike. If my stem was too long, and let's say I was reaching out here, I have to lean a lot more forward to actually get full steering angle on this bar. Going here, again, I'm basically right where I started. So this lets me know that I'm within the realm of what I want to be as far as the reach goes. I probably could go one stem length longer, but it'd be something I want to experiment with. So if that's the case, you want to basically just reach out to your friends, maybe a local shop, and see if they have any cheap or generic stems, or maybe you have some stock stems laying around in different varying lengths. Ask around and see if there's something so you can play with the stem length and see what you like. Now in this scenario, I think I'm going to keep it at the 80. Maybe in part 3, if you guys want to see that, comment below and I'll give you my riding impressions on this versus a 90. If you guys want to see that, I'd ideally like to run a redshift stem, and currently the shortest stem they do make is a 90 millimeter. They will be coming out with an 80 millimeter. So if this is what I want to go with later down the line, is what I'm probably going to upgrade to give a little bit more squish on the front end. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a 2.6 tire, so I do have quite a bit of mechanical squish, but I would like that just to take a little bit of the edge off, especially for this rigid rig. So those are things you're going to want to keep in mind when swapping out bar widths in a flat bar, or again, doing a drop bar to a flat bar conversion. Specialized has their own Evo model of the Diverge. I'm making my own Evo Pateron Redwood. and I'm really excited to see how this bike feels and the different change up in the characteristics of the bike with this style of handlebar. So now let's get into what gear range I'm going to be changing to and why. So now currently this bike is completely stock as far as gear range goes, and it does have very appropriate gears for typically a gravel bike or bikepacking bike. This has a 38 tooth front ring with an 11 to 48 10-speed Advent X group set. Now for most people that's going to be plenty of climbing gear, even with this bike being on the heavier side. So in this setup currently it is about 27.5 pounds, and that's with my pedals and cages installed, but no other accessories or water. So it isn't the lightest thing and it isn't the heaviest thing out there, but keep in mind, I want this basically to be my mountain bike and have similar mountain gearing, as well as because I am doing a bikepacking trip hopefully soon on this bike, and I want to keep it as basically my bikepacking rig for the next few months at least. I want to have the lowest possible gear range because I'm assuming, depending on how much water I'm going to be carrying on this bike, it's probably going to be in the high 50s to low 60 pound range, so I want to compensate with mechanical advantage. So what I'm going to run on this is a 104 BCD narrow wide 30 tooth chainring. And yes, that is going to drastically drop my top speed to probably about 15 to 18 miles an hour before I spin out, but I'm totally okay with that because again, I just want the ease of climbing gear loaded or unloaded. So now all I'm going to do is simply remove the current stock chainring and cut down the chain length to make it fit appropriately with this size of ring. So officially had a fail on the channel. It's been the first one in quite a while, but basically as you can see here, I have my 30 tooth chain ring. It is a 104 BCD like I had mentioned before, and it did initially go on, seemed fine, but then when I put the chain on, I realized there is actually a clearance issue between the crank arm here and where the chain needs to drop in for the 30 tooth ring. Because it is so small, it actually hits, so it self-shifts itself right off of the chain ring. So this is not gonna work. I'm gonna have to stop this video here, and I'm gonna be ordering a 32 oval chainring from the same company and trying out an oval for the first time. Decided might as well, why not, since I have the time and I'm gonna have to wait for the part anyway. So in part 3, what I'm gonna do now is actually give you my impression of the oval chainring as well as my fit impressions for running the same stem length, and possibly bringing out a 90mm with me to change out to see what I actually feel between the two stem lengths, and again, more information to give you if you're trying to convert your gravel bike or whatever bike into a 90s rigid mountain bike or just a flat bar in general. So I hope you like this video. Please make sure to comment below. So make sure again to comment below if you want to see a flat bar Pateron Redwood from them directly, as well as you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and you can support the channel via Spreadshirt, where I do have my Locked In and Slow But Look Pro merchandise, and on Patreon, where I do offer bike consultations at the top 2 tier levels. All those links in the description below, and thanks for watching another episode of Locked In. Let's get